Welcome back, kids. Flip Geometry with Mr. Llanos and Miss Robbins. I, of course, am Mr. Llanos, and we're going to get right into our next lesson, which is Lesson 1-2, Linear Measure. After this lesson, you'll be able to measure segments, and you will also be able to calculate with measures. In our last lesson, we talked about lines. If you remember, a line is a vast array of points that moves infinitely in both directions. An important thing to remember about lines is that they cannot be measured. Now, if we add a point and name this point A and yet another point B, we can create a portion of this line that can be measured. The measurable part of a line is called a line segment. It consists of 2 points called endpoints and all the points between them. If you look at the example at the bottom, point A and point B are the 2 endpoints of this line segment. So how do we name a line? Very simple. First, let's draw a new line segment. Let's give it endpoints X, Z. So all we have to do to name this is take our 2 endpoints, X, Z, and draw a small line above them. Again, just like when naming a line, it does not matter which order the letters go in as long as you use the correct notation above it. Here are just 2 more examples of line segments. On the left, we've got line segment DF, which could also be named FD. And on the right, we have line segment JL, which could also be renamed LJ. As I said before, a line segment can be measured. Take, for instance, line segment AB. If we look at this ruler, which is measured in millimeters, we can see that AB measures 42 millimeters. Now here we have another example of another line segment also named AB, but this time we're measuring it in centimeters. If we take a look, the B ends midway between the 4th and the 5th centimeter mark. So the answer to this one would be 4.5 centimeters. And here we have yet another line segment named AB, and we're going to be measuring it in centimeters. If you notice, the B is in between the 8th and 9th mark. So I would, in this case, just round that up to 1.9 centimeters. Let's measure one last line segment. This time we're going to get away from the AB and move on to line segment FG and measuring it in inches. This one is 3/4 of the way between 2 and 3. So I would write 2.75 inches. We've got one last line segment to measure here. Line segment CD. We're going to measure it in inches. D is 1/4 of the way between 1 and 2. So I'm going to say 1.25 inches. Let's take a look at this figure here. We've got a line with 4 points on it, A, N, B, and R. We've also got another point that is not collinear to those 4 points. That point is P. If we look at N, we can say that point N is between A and B. If we look at point B, we can say it is between N and R. Here we have another line with 3 points, P, M, and Q. We can say that point M is between points P and Q if and only if P, Q, and M are collinear and PM plus MQ equals PQ. So again, we can only say that it's between P and Q if PM is this line segment right here plus MQ, which is this line segment, is equal to PQ.
let's take a look at an example. It says find the measure of line segment EF. We know what EG is. We know what GF is, but now we need to find EF. I would start by writing an equation. We have EG plus GF is equal to EF. We've got our two parts that make up the whole. Now, let's plug in what we know. We know EG is 2.5. We know GF is 2.8. If we add those two together, EF would be 5.3 inches. The last thing we want to take a look at in this section is the term congruent. For two objects to be congruent, it means that they have to have the same measure. So, for instance, congruent segments are segments that have the same measure. We've got line segment AB and CD. The notation for congruent is as follows. You need to write an equal sign with a little wavy line right above it. That is the congruent mark. Again, I'm going to write this a little bit bigger in a different color. This is the notation for congruent. So this here says AB is congruent to CD. And you can look because both of them are 1.7 centimeters. When also looking at the figures themselves, these little congruent marks here let you know that line segment AB and line segment CD are congruent. The graph shows the percent of adults who participated in selected activities. Suppose a segment was drawn along the height of each bar. Which categories would have segments that are congruent? We could take a look at the two activities here, zoo and board games, and draw a line right above their bars and see that those two would be congruent. Also, if you take a look at museums and picnics, you can see that those two would be congruent as well. Well, that's the end of the notes for lesson 1-2. I would take a few minutes and try the problems in the rest of the packet before watching the next video.